Member Graves, thank you for having this hearing today. My name is Sharon Pinkerton. I'm the Senior Vice President for Policy at Airlines for America. It's an honor and a privilege to be here today to talk about aviation safety. Nothing's more fundamental to this industry than a commitment to safety. You know, U.S. carriers have led the world in aviation safety for decades, and we are very proud of that record. But the events that are bringing us here today have humbled us. These are sobering tragedies. And as an industry, as Americans, as human beings, we mourn the lost lives on Lion Air Flight 610 and Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302. I want to convey not just our condolences, but also our industry's commitment to support policies and actions that are going to help ensure the highest level of aviation safety. Our industry doesn't simply shrug off failures like this. We fixate on root and proximate causes in order to learn from what happened and take that knowledge to better ensure the safety of our passengers and crew. As an industry, we're constantly challenging ourselves to meet and exceed the highest levels of safety. It has to be said that travel on U.S. passenger carriers remains exceptionally safe. As the committee knows, because you've played a role in shaping this system, we've flown almost 8 billion people on 94 million flights over the last 10 years. And in that time, there was one fatality. And although that is too many, our record is remarkable. Commercial aviation remains the safest mode of transportation by a wide margin. But we cannot and we will not rest on the status quo. And that's our promise to you and to the families that are here. As you know, several authorities are still reviewing the 2 overseas accidents. It's important to allow those investigations to conclude before rendering final judgment. But we know from experience that there are usually several factors, not just one, that contribute to any accident. While we wait for the findings and recommendations, Boeing has taken responsibility and pledged to make improvements by updating the flight control software. Our response must be deliberate, rely on facts and data before we form recommendations, which is how the FAA is approaching these accidents. The FAA's safety and regulatory framework is the gold standard in the world, and our safety record is the proof of that. We have a culture of collaboration in aviation where everyone throughout the system, public and private employees, manufacturers, carriers, everyone is encouraged to speak up and speak out if they see a potential safety issue. The industry does work closely with the FAA, and we believe that a transparent and collaborative relationship is critical to making the safest aviation system in the world even safer. Our safety record is the result of deliberate and systemic improvements over many years. We've moved from an early 1990s very forensic approach, looking back to determine what happened, to a very proactive and predictive data-driven approach to determine that anticipates and prevents accidents before they occur. It was really in the mid-90s that the industry and the FAA started to rely more on data from the plane, data from our employees, data from the controllers. The Commercial Aviation Safety Team, or CAST, was formed to give all of the players, labor unions, operators in the FAA, manufacturers, a seat at the table to share information. And the 1996 FAA bill provided protection to entities to help create a safe environment for that information sharing. The Aviation Safety Information Analysis and Sharing Program, otherwise known as a SIAS, represents the overarching program that connects all of the FAA's safety programs and shares data from across those programs and uses that information to identify risk and develop mitigation strategies. What's extraordinary about how this industry approaches data sharing? It's unique to the aviation mode. Aviation data is not proprietary. We don't compete. We communicate and we collaborate when it comes to safety. With respect to the impact of the grounding of the MAX on passengers, there were 3 U.S. carriers that were operating the MAX when the aircraft was grounded in March. Those carriers immediately began reassigning existing resources to minimize disruption to passengers. Fortunately, carriers were able to accommodate over 99% of impacted travelers through rebooking and rerouting. Of course, the question still remains, when will the MAX be returned to service? And the answer is not before the FAA, working with our pilots, certifies that it's safe, and not before adequate training is performed. The FAA, working closely with our pilots' unions, our technical experts, international
I'm going
regulators,
to have to ask you to wrap up.
And Boeing is engaging in a rigorous process. I'll close by saying safety is something that our industry doesn't take for granted, and we never will. For us in the aviation community, our hearts break for the family members. However, we take solace in the fact that there are dedicated professionals, both public and private, that will do everything they can to maintain our tremendous safety record and build on it moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Captain Carrier, 5 minutes.